Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome as everyone's coming in. Welcome. It is the 4th annual EAC week here at Earth Force, the home of environmental applied civics. We've got a lot to celebrate this week. Lots of good work going on in our community, and of course, our brand new look and our new logo. So welcome to EAC Lightning Talks. These are 5-minute action stories from across the environmental applied civics community. I'm Kristen Dorfman. I'm the Alliance Network Strategy Lead here at Earth Force, home of environmental applied civics, and I'll be emceeing the session today. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you're tuning in from by leaving a comment or a chat on whatever platform you're viewing from today. And we'd love to hear from you too as we go along in our talks. Feel free to leave any cheers, comments, questions, and make use of that chat. We'd love to hear from you. So today we are going to hear from 5 fabulous partners who are implementing environmental applied civics across the country in their programs, from teacher training to student action. All of these folks are doing some pretty stellar work and embodying the values of youth voice, youth adult partnership, and civic action. Just want to take a moment before we get started to acknowledge that this work is funded in part by the Bezos Family Foundation and EE360. Thank you so much for your support. And then just a quick plug before we get started. The folks you're about to hear from today have all gone through our core training course. And we've got another one coming up very soon at the start of June. So this Train the Trainer style course will cover the entire EAC framework, the Earth Force process, and some trainer-oriented tools that you'll need to train and support other educators as they go through helping students to select an issue in their community, dig into it, and work directly with community leaders to make change in their communities. The course is fully virtual, no cost, with stipends available, and you'll meet other fabulous like-minded folks doing this work, so pretty sweet deal. We've got the dates and some other details here. So if you find yourself by the end of the hour inspired and you work in training educators, or you work in providing professional development, or if you work in a district-wide capacity, this course might be for you. Go ahead and scan that QR code and scroll down to the 3rd button to find out some more details about this course. And we'll have another opportunity to do that at the end of the hour as well. And we'd love to see you at our next Train the Trainer course coming up at the start of June. Hey, Catherine. Catherine is also an alum of our training. So is Paul. Hey, what's up? Glad to see you all sounding off in the comments. Hey, Tate. All right, so next I'll introduce our wonderful lightning speakers. This is also the order that they'll be speaking in. We've got Julie Johnson from Inland Seas Education Association, Rachel Rosner and Andrea Ramirez from It's Our Future, Sheila James from Teen Science Cafe Network, Naomi Thompson from Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia, and Haley Reynolds from Climate Democracy Initiative. And then we'll also have a brief Q&A to follow. So we'll keep track of some of those cues in the comments, so hopefully we can get some A's later on from our speakers. Alrighty, and then so let's welcome to the stage our first lightning speaker from Inland Seas Education Association, Julie Johnson. Hello.
Hello. Great to see you, Kristen. Excited to be here. All right, so I am Julie Johnson. I am the School Partnership Coordinator at Inland Seas Education Association. And I'm here to talk a little bit about the teacher training that we offer for teachers in the Great Lakes region. So just a little bit about our organization, Inland Seas. So we are based in Northern Michigan, in the Pinky, as we like to say. And we are a nonprofit that does Great Lakes education for mostly K through 12 students. And we do it from aboard a tall ship schooner. So we like to teach students all about Great Lakes ecology and the food web by taking samples from schooners and analyzing them, getting our hands in the mud and handling fish and all that kind of fun stuff. But we also have our teacher training course, which is the next slide. It is called the Great Lakes Watershed Field Course. So we are coming up on our 8th year of hosting this. Our first year was in 2017, and it is a 1-year collaboration with up to 30 teachers every year. And the goal is for teachers to then go back to their classrooms and conduct some sort of project, some sort of action civic project with their students, and typically watershed focused because we teach about the Great Lakes. So it is completely free as well. That's something I wanted to mention too. You can switch to the next slide. So the Great Lakes Watershed Field Course is split up into 3 parts. So I said it's a year-long collaboration. Part 1 is the biggest, meatiest part, where we actually host all of the up to 30 teachers here on our campus in Suttons Bay. And we do an intensive workshop where we are going through the Earth Force curriculum. We're modeling different steps of it. We're bonding and networking with the folks that we're with and going on field trips in northern Michigan. From there, the teachers head back to their schools, and we continue to support them during the school year through cohort meetings. We split them up, and we connect with them virtually. And then part 3 is kind of like a fun little wrap up. Not everybody is always able to make it, but it's the alumni reunion. So we always offer it to the most recent group of teachers that have come through our program. And then we open it up to any alumni that have ever participated in the field course. And they come back to Suttons Bay for 2 days for continued learning. So I'm going to dive a little bit into what we do during each of these parts. So here we have some pictures of we're modeling our environmental citizen, which is one of the things that you can do during the Earth Force process to introduce what it can mean to be an environmental citizen. And we also like to model different steps of the process. So community inventory. So we got teachers getting into a creek, seeing what kind of macroinvertebrates are there. What else do we do? Next slide, please. We go on tour. Oh, yes. So we go on a tour of a local creek restoration project. We've been doing that for a few years now, where they are implementing a bunch of different methods and strategies for restoring a local creek. Of course, we go out sailing on the boat and take that as like an inventory of how the Great Lakes are doing. And we even take some time we have some alumni teachers will Zoom in and answer questions that the teachers might have about how they've implemented the Earth Force process in their classrooms. So we got some alumni interacting with the new folks. Next slide. And of course, we like to spend a lot of time really getting to know the place up here in northern Michigan and getting to know the Great Lakes, swimming, going to the beaches that are around here. Just really immersing yourself in our place in Suttons Bay and Leelanau County. So after the workshop, teachers head back to their schools, and we divide them up into 4 different groups. So there's like 5 to 6 teachers in each group. They're divided based on like whether they teach high school, elementary school, grade level. Sometimes geographic area comes into play as well. And we meet at least 3 times with our cohorts during the school year. During these meetings, we discuss everything from applicable resources from Earth Force that might be useful for the step that they're at in implementing a project, any challenges that they've been having, successes, and they get to ask us questions. Kristen has joined us for these cohort meetings this past year, and they get to talk to each other, help each other through it too. And then the reunion is, a fun 2 days where everybody comes back to Suttons Bay and we do a little bit more learning. We get to share about projects, how it went, and we get to go on some field trips. This is us at Fish Pass, which is a cool new invasive species barrier that they're building in nearby here. So we went there last year. Next slide. Oh, yeah. Oh, and going on the boat again and going to Sleeping Bear Dunes, seeing some piping plovers, which are an endangered shorebird. So we get to do a lot of fun things. And through this Great Lakes Watershed Field Course, we've had amazing teachers come through. These are just a small snippet of some of the projects that they've implemented. So we had a teacher from Ohio that they were the first school in Northeast Ohio to implement a compost in their school. And then they partnered with a local farm where they were able to take the compost and the students educated their fellow students on how to compost. So that's been a really cool result of the process. And I believe there's one more I have here. Yeah, so students were really frustrated with all the trash that they were finding on their playground. So they conducted a trash survey and tried to figure out where trash cans were as well. They made a presentation about needing to clean up the litter, and they did research on what kinds of trash cans would be best for their location and pitched it to their school administration and got some more trash cans added in to try to clean up the litter problem. So that's just a few small examples of what we have done through our field course and what our teachers have done. So if you are interested at all in joining us for our field course this next year, applications open up in March. They're closed for this current summer, but any teachers that are in the Great Lakes region, we would love to hear from you and work with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Julie. As a Michigander, I love hearing place-based stories coming up from your programs. Thanks so much for sharing. Next up, we have Rachel Rosner and Andrea Ramirez from It's Our Future.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel. I'm the program manager for It's Our Future. You want to go ahead and pop the slide, Kristen? Are you stuck? Okay, good. So It's Our Future I work with students from 30 Chicago area high schools, mostly remotely, on supporting them and advocating for stronger climate justice policies in their schools, communities, on the state level and beyond. And we have the extra privilege of taking a handful to the United Nations Climate Conference each year. And what I noticed throughout the whole experience is that students who are particularly tuned into climate are really longing to be together. And with that, we decided to host a Youth Climate Justice Summit. And Andrea was the chair of the committee, and she'll tell you a little more about it.
Hi, hopefully my Wi-Fi isn't cutting in, so just let me know. But my name is Andrea Ramirez. I'm a senior at Neuqua Valley High School in Naperville. And I was the steering committee chair for the summit, which next slide tells you a little bit about it. So the summit itself was held in October, and it was 100 students from 22 high schools around the Chicagoland area. And basically the youth created and led it through like our different committees, but the planning was all virtual, and it was inspired by the Wild Center, which has had 250 summits across the nation, and this was the first one in Illinois. So basically the summit was a way for kids to come together, learn about climate change with the goal of bringing back projects and action that they could take in their schools and communities. And we can go to the next slide. So it was really important throughout the planning process to have youth voices from all communities, but not all students would be able to afford that. So we went out to different underrepresented communities and offered stipends to students who wouldn't be able to participate without them. And then the next slide. So the day itself, we started with different keynote speakers who were able to give kids the same base level of understanding and education for those who maybe didn't come with as much experience or knowledge. So these were our two keynote speakers. And then on the next slide, we have a little bit more about our day. We had different breakout sessions that ranged from water to air quality to communication through art, which each were able to showcase students' different interests and a different way for them to learn. And then we also had an opportunity fair at lunch. And we ended the day off with a...
It's okay, go ahead. We had an ice cream social and an open mic with some fun songs. That was the closer. Okay. But before that, we had climate action planning time, and that CAP workbook was based on the EAC model. Our students modified it for this event and led the way. So after school groups sort of dispersed and went to all different workshops throughout the day, they reconvened with their school group and started the process of drafting a climate action plan to bring back to their schools. And just last month, so the summit was in October, and just last month we had a CAP celebration where that was virtual, where students really shared out success stories from the year. It was really exciting and energizing. Next. So the planning process involved 4 student-led subcommittees. The programming team did everything from, recruiting and sort of training up the speakers to make sure that the material was engaging and relevant for youth. Logistics had gobs of spreadsheets and Google Forms to run a show, lunch, all that stuff. Marketing did social media, web design, and email marketing. And then the vibes team made sure the day was welcoming and fun through music, art, and games. Next. So that was sort of the youth part of the YA partnership aspect of the summit. And the adult part was getting funding, creating that framework for students. I have a lot of connections in the community. So some of the outreach a fair amount of the outreach was through adults, and then mentorship. And next. Oh, wait, Andrea wanted to say something about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all I would really say is that climate change is an issue that affects everyone, youth and adults both. So no one should really feel a responsibility to deal with a problem alone. It's really important that we learn from each other and use each other's strengths to be able to communicate and make it better.
Great. And then the room for improvement, like I chose this picture because there I am in the middle, and that's my room for improvement, is decentering myself and other adults and taking some of that scaffolding away and increasing that sense of youth ownership in the whole process. And that happens by training students with the leadership skills so that they can really take the reins. And Andrea, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just that leadership component. Not all students came in with the same experience and skills to be leaders, but a lot of kids took this as an opportunity to learn, and it's something that they were interested in being more involved in doing. So just remembering that not all students are on the same page and giving them that support.
And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. What a fabulous example. I love how you all parsed out, like, here's what the youth did and here's what the adults did in that youth adult partnership. I think that's a really valuable piece of learning for our audiences. So thank you both so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, keeping in with our lightning round. Next up is Sheila James from Teen Science Cafe Network. Take it away, Sheila. Sheila, you're muted real quick.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, yes. So I was saying I feel excited to follow the folks that I've been behind because I was born and raised in Michigan, so pure Michigan. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Teen Science Cafe and how EAC has sort of brought us full circle and is giving our teens another opportunity. And we actually have a cafe in Chicago that is focused on climate. So it's like I'm in the perfect space. So my name is Sheila James, and I am the manager of Teen Science Cafe. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the connection between Teen Science Cafe and environmental applied science, civics. So Teen Science Cafe is already built around for teens by teens. The teens choose the topics, they help plan their cafe, they engage with STEM experts, and then they create an interactive experience. Environmental applied civics helps us to extend that model from youth voice programming to youth voice in community problem solving. It's a natural fit because this is not a new model, but it deepens the experience that our teens have when participating in a cafe. Teen leaders choose their topics like climate change, water quality, air quality, food systems, or environmental health. With an EAC lens, we help them to begin to ask questions like, where does this issue show up locally? Who is affected? What do we need to learn? Who makes decisions about this? And what actions could young people take? So what this looks like in practice within a Teen Science Cafe, the teens identify their issue. They invite a STEM expert, a community partner, a public agency representative, or local decision maker into their cafe. They design a cafe activity that helps their peers explore the issue through data, through mapping, observation, discussion, or hands-on investigation. Teen Science Cafes have two main groups of teens participating. The one is the leadership team. They plan the cafes. The other are their friends who they invite to participate in the cafe. We have over 20 cafes in Alabama that focus on environmental education. We have cafes here in South Carolina that focus on the shore and water quality. And we also have a new cafe in Chicago this year that is focusing on climate. The role of the adult within our cafes. The adults do not take over the process. Their role is to coach, connect, and support. I like to tell our adults, you're the coach or the guide on the side. Your role is to stay on the sidelines and let the teens lead. They help their teens refine questions, identify what experts they want to invite in, understand the decision-making systems, plan realistic action steps, and reflect afterward. The goal is not to solve everything. The goal is to help teens experience themselves as capable civic actors. Best practices within our cafes start with teen curiosity and lived experience. We like to connect STEM learning to real local issues. We help teens to understand who has decision-making power, and then we help them to make action, realistic, youth-led, and evidence-based decisions that are built in reflection so that teens can name what they learned about science, community, power, and leadership. Teen Science Cafe gives young people a platform. Environmental Applied Civics gives that platform a civic pathway, and together they help teens move from curiosity to investigation to community dialogue to meaningful civic action. We will be taking applications for new cafes in June, and I will make sure that Kristen and her team can share my email address and our website if you're interested in hosting a Teen Science Cafe.
Yeah, Sheila, that's so wonderful. You are really speaking our language, and I would love to see more Teen Science Cafes out in the world.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. And then next up, we've got Naomi Thompson from Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia, EEA for short. All right,
Hi.
Naomi, go on ahead.
Thank you. Yes. Well, you can see on the slide one of the programs that we connect with the EAC model. This is the Advanced Training for EE in Georgia, or ATIG. And another program that EEA does is called the CREST program. It's a year-long leadership professional learning program for K through 12 teachers. In that program, they do they have to do additional hours. And so one of the things they're connected to is the EAC core training. And then you can see here on the slide some of what's involved with our ATIG program. And particularly what we connect with the EAC model is the Introduction to Environmental Literacy course and the Fostering Learning course. On the next slide, you can see what we mainly cover in our Introduction to Environmental Literacy course. And this is where we really think that all of this environmental literacy, the guidelines there, really connect with the EAC model. So for instance, I think guideline 1.1, that awareness and appreciation, just goes so well when you're doing any kind of community inventory, any kind of exploration. And then also the guidelines 1.2 to 1.4, where you're applying systems thinking, that's also for the community inventory, but certainly for some of those later steps where you're thinking about stakeholders, you're thinking about root causes, that all applies there as well. And then certainly the guidelines 1.5 and 1.6, what skills do you need? The willingness to take action, that certainly fits into those later steps of the EAC model. On the next slide, you can see some examples of how we incorporate it into our courses. So the online module component is something that each of our courses has. There's an online Canvas dashboard there, that picture you can see, and everyone can go in to go through a lot of the modules at their own pace. And the connection we make there online is for the Fostering Learning course. So that one is where we connect the EAC model with effective questions so that our participants can understand how they can scaffold learning for the students, or as others have said, you take a step back and you just ask some important questions to help the students move along. And then every course also has an in-person one-day component. So the picture you see on the right-hand side there is of people drawing their community after they've spent all morning going around the community where we hold the workshop. And I love this one. Sometimes we do it on paper. This one, they're using chalk here on the entrance exit of the workshop space. And I like this drawing of the community because we can return to this. They'll sometimes come back and put their issues and solutions, draw the issues and solutions there as well. So that is our Introduction to Environmental Literacy course. And then we keep taking them through the steps of the EAC model as we talk through the issues they came up with and the root causes and their solutions. On the next slide, what we do after we've taken them through is we look at the EAC model from the standpoint of how do they think their students would handle each of these steps. But then also after they've gone through all of that, had time to reflect, we ask, how do you see your organization now using the EAC model, or even using some of those different steps? And so that's why I wanted to highlight that step 5 there. You can see we have people put little dots on the ones that they think they could go and implement at their organization. But on step 5 there, somebody put a little unhappy face. And so that led to a great discussion of how, yes, sometimes you can't do the full model. Maybe you do certain parts, and perhaps you then find partners who can help you eventually do the full EAC model. On the next slide, it shows you a little bit of who we have come through our ATIG program, certainly K through 12 teachers, but anyone who's doing environmental education. And as I said, the CREST professional learning program, that is specifically for K through 12 leaders at their schools. Now, we have not had someone in our ATIG program particularly do the full EAC model, but as you see here, I want to show you this example of a person from the 7-week program that she runs. She's the school's sustainability and ag sciences director. When she went through this whole EAC model, she realized, wow, that's what I do. It really just confirmed what she was doing was good best practices. And then, as it says there, really strengthened her program because she now realized she had a framework to go back to. And then is there the next one that shows a bit of the CREST pictures? No. Okay, thank you. Well, so then, of course, the CREST program, they go through a year-long program, and they're able to go to a summer institute where they're able to work through all of the steps of the EAC model as well. And it's really good for them to have that reflection because they're able to go back to their school with this knowledge, but also hopefully go back and introduce it to their whole district. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. It's really fun and really cool to hear some of the more nitty-gritty stuff about how you all train teachers and other educators. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, lastly, to round out our lightning round is Haley Reynolds from Climate Democracy Initiative. Haley, the floor is yours. Haley, you're not muted, but your sound is not coming through.
How about now?
Yes, let's go.
Perfect. I switched to my phone apparently. Thanks so much. So welcome to the amazing talks that we're having with the lightning rounds here. And I'm really excited to be here today. So I am representing the Eclipse program at the Climate Democracy Initiative. So the Climate Democracy Initiative is a organization that's been invited into spaces where key perspectives and voices happen to be missing from the table. So I'm really appreciative of all the programs that spoke before me on how you're working to include those voices at the table. And what we're doing is helping communities create pathways, map opportunities, and build systems that make inclusive civic and climate engagement a natural progression rather than an afterthought. And at Eclipse, we're heavily invited to focus on rural educators that are being asked to do more than ever with fewer resources, less time, and increasing community challenges. So Eclipse works alongside EarthForce EAC model to help educators turn civic learning into practical community-centered action that students can immediately engage in. We're not asking teachers to reinvent curriculum. We're helping them activate what they're already doing in ways that build leadership, civic engagement, and future pathways for rural youth. So next slide, please. So in many schools, the issue is not willingness. We're actually finding that educators want meaningful learning experiences for students, but they're navigating burnout, staffing shortages, new standards, and limited capacity in our rural districts. So what we constantly hear is, please don't hand us another full curriculum. They need adaptable tools and practical strategies that they can implement immediately. And that's where EAC comes in. So together, next slide, please. Eclipse and EAC help align shared learning goals across schools, community, and youth. In schools, educators are able to connect what they're already teaching to real-world applications. So we actually work with them to find what's happening in their immediate communities that are already being activated around what's on their docket for that semester or even that session. And then we're aligning that with real priorities that the community is taking place, creating more meaningful and youthful engagement. And for youth, this creates a clear pathway to build skills, take action, and see the impact of their work. But what makes this powerful is that these goals are not separate. They're connected, reinforcing each other through shared structure. So next slide, please. So this visual represents the core of Eclipse as a systems model. So Eclipse is an acronym. It's a very long acronym. So it's empowering civic leadership to inspire progress through student engagement. But the whole goal is to build alignment between community need and student potential. So Eclipse is not about adding new work. It's aligning, again, what's already happening across schools, communities, and local systems. It operates in a space between community need, student potential, and youth interest and want. So our main focus is we hear from the youth what they're interested in, and the moon actually represents the youth in this space. So youth already care deeply about the issues that are affecting their lives every single day and the issues that are affecting their communities, but oftentimes in rural systems, they lack pathways. Typically our pathways are adult-centered, adult-led, and so they don't have their voices heard and they don't have opportunities to lead in these spaces oftentimes. The sun in this system represents the community. The communities already have real challenges needing attention. They're already looking for partners to make these actions happen, and students are really interested in that. And so what we do is we're actually using different structures, one of which being the EAC structure, in our system to support the connection between those two realities in ways that educators can realistically facilitate. So next slide, please. So this is the core of our work. Eclipse actually functions as a system. So first we connect. So we're invited into schools, community organizations, youth, and local programs to build a shared understanding of the real challenges that they're seeing in the community. Then we add structure by using some of the EAC framework tools. If it's applicable, we'll bring in some of the systems that we've been trained in our EAC framework to kind of plug and play and make it really easy access. One of the things that I love about the EAC framework is you can hand the teacher a program or a system of the EAC framework and say, here's what we're going to do, and train them within that. And they can actually go and implement that as many times as they need to. Whether they're a first semester teacher, which 45% of our teachers are in our systems right now that we're working with, or whether they're a tenured teacher that just really doesn't want to rebuild their curriculum again and just needs some new resources to keep it fresh. Now, this part is really critical. It gives educators a clear process that they can follow, from identifying issues to researching root causes, engaging stakeholders, and taking action. It removes the pressure of starting from scratch and provides something that they can immediately use. Once we have that shared understanding between the community, the local organizations, and the youth perspective, we then head back out into the community to work on finding the voices that are still missing from the table, or the youth that are interested in learning from these systems and want to take lead in these actions. Then we activate. Educators use the structure that we're building, the ecosystem mapping tools that we create, and they are using those structures to guide student-led projects that are grounded in real community needs. Now, I want to go back to something that was said about teachers guiding and being a mentor, and I really appreciate the space that all of the previous presenters have spoken about that, around adults being in that framework of being a mentor or supportive structure. We do a lot of community-based trainings around that. That's the main component of what our trainings end up being, is how do I authentically show up as an adult leader? And the EAC framework has been super supportive in that. And in fact, working with all of the Earth Force team has been incredibly beneficial in this space. So with that, we're actually going to be leaning into not just one project, but a system that continues to support educators and students over time. When a student feels supported and the teacher feels like they know how to step into that mentorship space, more students come to the table with ideas, more teachers feel supported in that space, and we're creating the system that builds on models so that when we move away from being in that mentorship or that consultant role, they have the system in play and they know that we're there to support them when they want to rebuild it. Next slide, please. So together, Eclipse and EAC help align shared learning goals across schools, communities, and youth. Now I'm going to throw a couple things at you, and then I'm going to show you a visual of what this actually looks like in real life. So in schools, educators are able to connect what they're already teaching to real-world applications while building their own capacity and meeting required outcomes. Speaking of required outcomes, we are heavily leaning into the Seal of Climate Literacy that was just ratified in 2024 in the state of Colorado and is activating in multiple states across the nation. The Seal of Climate Literacy is a wonderful opportunity that students can actually earn a certificate at the end of their graduating year by completing a project anytime from K through 12 and also attending 2 climate-based classes, one being a science class and one being any other subject that includes climate literacy standards. Now, a lot of the teachers, they see that and they say, well, how do I want to incorporate climate literacy standards into art? And we help them develop those resources or bring in local subject matter experts to help them really kind of bring that whole thing together. In the community, partners are not just guests. So those subject matter experts don't just show up for a one-time speaking engagement. Oftentimes they're collaborators. We have different local organizations that are inviting the youth to participate and step into leadership roles in their organizations outside of school, not only giving them a second and third place for them to be outside of the school system, but it's actually inviting them in as a trusted partner and adult leader, which is a beautiful opportunity for that. Student projects are then aligning with the priorities of the local organizations for grant funding, for community impact actions, and they're creating more meaningful activities and projects. And then for youth, this is actually creating a really clear pathway to build skills, take action, and see the impact of their work in real time. A lot of our students have these ongoing projects that happen over years, but some of them want to see a realistic timeline of what this could potentially show up as in their community right now. So we're giving them those tools and using EAC framework to literally map that out for them. So what makes these powerful is that these goals are not separate. They're connected, again, reinforcing each other through a shared structure. Now let's take a look at what it looks like in action. Next slide, please. So in schools, Eclipse shares EAC tools as a flexible framework educators can plug into lessons, projects, and capstone work without adding more to their workload. So this first image that you see in schools is actually students who have been through the EAC process with us and are now presenting at their project-based learning summit about an idea that they've created, a community garden, community impact project. Now with that, it also created an opportunity for us to ask them how they wanted their voice to be included in the community around community gardening. And that led into them stepping into evaluating workshops that their teachers were going to go through so they could see and make sure that they were working together to identify the disconnect between classroom learning, teacher learning, and student engagement. So our students were actually evaluating our workshops before the teachers went through them, making sure that they were going to get out of it what they wanted their teachers to learn and how to interact with them better. In communities, Eclipse brought EAC in. We actually invited Taylor into one of our Youth Exploring Stewardship conferences to open up the door for taking the skills that the students learn all weekend in our Youth Exploring Stewardship conference and learn how to apply it back in action in their own community. So that's what you see in that image right there is our end of conference summit where we brought all the students together. They went through the mini version of the EAC model, and they were actually able to take those actions back to their communities. We also were able to use the youth voice perspective in creating youth tracks at a local adult-centered summit. So every single year, there's an annual summit, a Sun, Soil, Water Summit in Pueblo, Colorado, hosted by the Pueblo Food Project. Phenomenal summit that's always been centered on bringing adult voices together, farmers, developers, food action systems together. And this year, for the very first time, we had a youth track at that summit, and we were able to have the youth not only identify the things they wanted to participate in on that track, but they're actually helping us develop that track for next year to grow it in our second year. And in the third space, the leadership space, Eclipse actually works with EAC, and we use some of the EAC tools to help prepare youth to engage in adult-centered spaces. We do mock interviews, we do panel discussions, we really kind of help them frame out their thought process so they know how to bring policy action to the table. And so they can actually show up in these adult-centered spaces with confidence, clarity, and purpose. And the image that you see on this picture is actually some of the youth from the Youth Unity Rising Summit that we hosted in November, where we had school groups from all over Denver Metro, the Front Range of Colorado, and Pueblo, Colorado, come together, middle school to high school, and talk about the policy action around environmental climate change they want to see done and brought back into their local communities. So next slide, please. So with all that being said, at its core, this work is really about making meaningful civic engagement realistic and sustainable for our rural educators. So Eclipse uses the EAC model to help schools transform community challenges into opportunities for student leadership, collaboration, and future readiness. And when educators are given practical support systems, students are able to step into meaningful roles that shape both not just their communities, but also their futures and their skill sets. So thank you guys so much. If you're interested in working with Eclipse, I'm sure we can share our information or check out climatedemocracyinitiative.org.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll just note, we'll be sharing all of these speaker email addresses at the end. Wow, Haley, thank you so much. That was so fabulous, and your slides were beautiful. Well, wow. Let's just give all of our lightning speakers a round of applause because that was fabulous. Not only were you all concise, but you were powerful and showed so many cool things happening from across our community. It is always really energizing. I know for our team, at least, I'll let everyone else at home speak for themselves, but it's super energizing for the Earth Force team to hear from you all. And let's kick it over to some Q&A. If anyone in the audience out there has a question for any of our speakers or for our speakers as a group, go ahead and put those in the comments and we will address them as they come. While folks are teeing up their questions, I've got one pre-baked. Did any of you encounter a challenge during your program that you didn't expect, whether that was student facing or educator facing, or kind of while things were underway already that you didn't expect, and how'd you handle it?
I have a pretty interesting one in that space is, with the name Climate Democracy Initiative and working in rural systems, there's a lot of misapprehension around what we do and what our name could potentially lean into. So when we come in saying, we're Climate Democracy Initiative, we're working in environmental applied civics, we really have to break that down into different terminologies and kind of lead with our actions first rather than our vocabulary. So that has been a huge opportunity for us to really kind of work in that space, is how do we change our vocabulary to really make it feel more actionable without it feeling targeted. So that's been a really beautiful opportunity. The minute, we finish our sessions, we hear, "Oh, we love what you guys are doing. You really need to consider changing your name." But they love what we're doing, and so they continue doing it. So I think even though it creates a challenge, we're opening up doors for dialogue and opening up the change of what climate means, democracy means. It's changing that whole perspective, taking away that definition of the word and opening up doors for what it means in those different communities.
Yeah, 100%. We feel that as well. Thanks for sharing, Haley. Tate has a really great question. She asked, how do you sustain teacher participation or buy-in year after year in your program if that is an audience that you serve?
Can I tackle that one?
Please do, Sheila.
With Teen Science Cafe, we provide that, I like to call it that behind the scenes support that adults working with youth need and sometimes don't have access to. And that looks like professional development opportunities, opportunities to connect with others who are dealing with or tackling the same issues that they might be dealing, just an opportunity to connect with other adults. And then the main thing is that professional development opportunities and opportunities to meet in person, to talk and connect with others in the field.
Yeah, that does make me think too of Julie. Your program is like so fun and so wonderful that I know your teachers really rave about it year after year to invite their friends to it. Got a question from Catherine. Training educators to incorporate EAC in their school is a great opportunity for me to consider since teachers continue to be reticent having me come to their classroom. Ooh, has anyone encountered that? I think, Haley, maybe you mentioned at the beginning of your talk that like it can often be seen as like one more thing. Have any of you run into that issue?
Oftentimes when we're invited into the school, we're sitting and listening. We're not coming in to give them curriculum. And then at the end, we kind of sit and say, here's what I'm hearing that you're doing really well. These resources, like for example, some of your downloadable resources you have on the EAC platform are really great. I'm just going to set this here and if this is an opportunity for us to talk through this one little worksheet, let's talk through it. And oftentimes, if they are not getting a full curriculum, but they're getting an action, just one action item, they feel a lot more open to trying other things too. So if you're just giving them step-by-step opportunities, and that also kind of goes into Paul's question too, is like, how do you make your resources available to connect with other organizations? Being at the table. You don't always have to be the voice at the table, but just being at the table and listening to the gaps and offering that to maybe the science team lead, or maybe it's the career technical education provider, whatever that looks like. You have the resources to be able to just say, here's one step that might help you in that regard. Here's what I'm hearing that the challenge is. Is that correct? Instead of speaking first.
Yeah, does anybody else have a response to Paul's question?
I was going to say that I think the CREST program that EEA does, where you're bringing leaders from different school systems together, could be one way to connect. There's a core set of people who come and teach some of the initial courses for the CREST program. And again, the CREST program has K through 12 teachers that come in. And so those initial courses are being taught by, as I said, a core set of teachers, but then the participants need to search on their own for professional development. And there's numerous organizations that are listed that somebody could go to and take trainings, either virtual or in person. And so I just thought that that's one way you have a larger group that comes together to put on a training, and then can make sure that all of these resources are known to the participants, who are not, as I was saying in my presentation, they're not just going back to their school, they're really going back to their district. So it might get a larger group of people connected.
I think, Sheila, you answered that question in the chat about engaging students in your work. Would you like to speak to that a little more?
Yeah, well, the question was about how we engage, and all of our cafes, I think this is one of the beautiful things. There's not one cafe that looks the same. We have over 130 cafes across the country, and that includes Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and Alaska. And the cafes are run by museums, science centers, libraries, out of school time programs, community partners. It just depends on what the community needs. We just hosted one of our cafes in a very rural part of Maine, and those teens wanted to know about chemists and what the day in the life of a chemist looks like. Well, we Zoomed one in for them to host their cafe, so they did everything virtually. So we engage the students wherever they are. Like I said, my Alaska cafe is completely different. It's something that is completely different from anything in the lower 58, but it fits the needs of this small school in a village in Alaska. So we meet them where they are and bring what they need to engage with STEM professionals and those environmental applied civics within their communities.
There was a really great question from Tate, who asked about how do you go about responding or providing feedback and coaching to an adult leader who just isn't quite hitting the mark, whether that is like maybe they're kind of taking on too much on their own role, or something of that nature?
I mean, I have been in that position a little bit, and I have the gift of self-deprecation, I think. So I'll sort of, rather than necessarily directly confronting, I'll say, I'm trying so much to talk less, or I'm trying to frame this in an empowering way, or, I think, and kind of thinking of it as a mutual dialogue where we could each learn from each other. I feel like that's been impactful.
Yeah, modeling, absolutely, as much as we possibly can. SJ had a good question as well. SJ says, I would love to hear y'all talk about replicability. That's a big word. Replicability of these approaches. Where did you get started with integrating EAC in your existing work, and what sort of initially drew y'all into it?
I can say that for our training program, I just thought it fit so well. So I guess that's why it drew me in. It was a great framework that we could present to our participants. I showed on the slides how I thought it connected with the environmental literacy guidelines that we present to our participants. And so, again, that just seemed like a great framework. And then also one of the slides, I was talking about one of the teachers who doesn't use the EAC model fully, but she realized, oh, there's a framework there now. So I think that it's so important for a lot of these people who might be by themselves and feel like they don't easily get resources somewhere, and then to point them to Earth Force, it's just really phenomenal. And I guess to someone else's question as well, in terms of trying to give feedback and coach someone, you do try to make sure you go through and model it, as everyone said, and then continue to just mentor them and remind them, oh, why don't you look at this resource? Hey, there's this whole training coming up. So I think that's some of the ways that I just saw it really connecting so well.
I will absolutely second the trainings. Kristen knows I blast these trainings out as often as I possibly can. They're a phenomenal way, not only for educators to see the tangible actions of each one of the different steps, but the community that comes from the trainings is phenomenal. You know, in the training that I went in almost a year ago, we had educators in rural Idaho that were like, I can't even say the word environmental in the school. And how do I actually bring this in? And we had a whole cohort of educators that were helping them process through that and understand different terminology for it. So the community that comes from the EAC training is just so phenomenal. And the resources you get by just being in that community and finding grants together, finding opportunities for collaboration together. It's an incredible way just to kind of be like, what's my first step? You have a whole community to talk to about it. It's beautiful.
I have a question. It's probably be our last question for Andrea, if that's all right to ask you. Where would you like to see the summits go in 1 year or in 5 years?
Well, a lot of the kids that were on the committee that I worked with were underclassmen, so juniors and sophomores. So I know it's in super awesome hands, and the kids have really ambitious, great ideas to expand and make Chicago Summit even bigger with kids from other communities and more representation. So I just hope more kids feel like just as comfortable taking action. I think that's probably the biggest and the hardest part is after the kids leave the summit, they feel super inspired and ready to do something. But kids get busy throughout the school year and with their other activities. So I hope the other students in the future can continue to like use those projects that they take away and continue the momentum that they leave with throughout the school year.
Yes, could not have said that better. That's so awesome. Let's hear some commotion for our lightning speakers. Thank you all so much for joining us. And then let's hit some stuff before we leave. Q&A. Yes, if you would like to get in contact with any of these fabulous folks, here is their contact information, or you can also always reach out to us at Earth Force, and we'll be happy to make some connections if this escapes your pen and paper. Last couple things before we say farewell for the day is, again, thank you so much for attending EAC Week. We put on a slew of events this week, so if you weren't able to make this one and you're watching the recording, we've got another event tomorrow, the Youth Adult Partnership Panel and the Caring for Our Watersheds Finals on Thursday. There's no shortage of ways to get connected, and this QR code will take you there. If you wouldn't mind, we've got a survey also attached to that QR code that'll let us know how we're doing. You can also sign up for that core training through that link. And we would love to see you tomorrow and the next day and the week after that and at our core trainings and in our communities. We're so happy that we have such a vibrant space full of wonderful EAC practitioners. So thank you all again so much. It's been a lovely hour hearing from you all, and I hope to see you all again soon. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.